Happy Friday, SMITE fans. Welcome back to the SEC. We're starting today off with some EU SEC action. We'll be over in the SPL a little bit later on. But we've got a fun one to round out this week in the EU SMITE Challenger Circuit. Hex Mambo up against the Aaru Scorpions. My name's Dolson. I can never do it alone, though. Mifflin's with me for what should be a good matchup here, Miff. Yesterday we had a couple EU SEC sets. Both of them go 3 games. On paper, this one maybe leaning one direction more so than the others.
Yeah, Hex Mambo is a dominant squad. I mean, you got guys like Johnny, you got guys like Zero, Trix Tank, E-Chrome, and actually no longer Etori out of the Soul Lane. It's Deathwalker. That's crazy. Is that allowed?
Crazy. Apparently it is, because it's happening. And that's what the Hex Mambo are going to be playing with out of the Soul Lane. Gladiators and Wargs yesterday both find 2-1 wins over the Ferrymen and the Ravens, respectively. So the Scorpions will look to fend off the Hex Mambo here today prior to the SPL kicking off. Tomorrow we'll have a North American matchup prior to the SPL as well. In these early phase matchups, really where separations can start to build out and how different standings can start to look early on here. You know, when the teams are all within 1 or 2 wins of one another, a lot of moving and shaking can be done. For now, the Wargs and the Gladiators both find themselves up top at 2-0. Hex Mambo, Miff, surprised with the roster that they have, that they end up dropping a set in week number 1, but the ability to get back on track, tie things up with the Ravens here today with the win over the Aaru Scorpions. And the Scorpions, not a team that can be completely looked over either. Definitely some new talent here with this team. Definitely a team with some room to grow. But could be a trial by fire with some of the names that are already here in the EU SEC. Of course, the Scorpions, it's Ugly One, French Emperor, Picarino, Calvin, and Davey. So absolutely names, Miff, that you know, I remember casting last year before that in the SEC. And so these players have some tenure in this league and definitely have some room to grow upwards.
Yeah, specifically those last 3 names you bring up, Picarino, Calvin, and Davey, are guys that you should be very used to seeing at the EU SEC level. They've, I believe, climbed through the SOC in the past as well, and a squad that has stuck together for a fair bit of time. I think that legitimately the only thing separating them from this other squad, the Hex Mambo, is some of that tenure, right? You've got SPL pedigree on the other side, whereas this team has been a little bit more SEC-centric. Yeah,
some recent SPL tenure for this Hex Mambo roster. Deathwalker, as Miff mentioned, normally a Tory, now Deathwalker out of the solo lane, storied career there.
And a forever change.
And a forever change, that's permanent. Johnny, Zeros, Trix Tank, and E-Chrome, the other 4 members of this Hex Mambo team. So again, surprised that they dropped a set in week number 1. Could make an argument for being the favorites over here in EU. A couple of these players, Johnny and Zeros, played in the SPL last year to some, you know, maybe mitigated success, but still played at the highest level of SMITE last year. I'm nothing if not. I'm running for office here in a handful of years, Miff. I gotta.
You got my vote. Well, I don't know what office, but you got it.
Be careful. I don't know if you want to stamp that just yet. But look, this Hex Mambo team, a roster with just so much talent. And making use of that talent is where this team has fallen short in the past. Maybe that's where they fell short in week 1. Look to get back on track here against the Scorpions. Game number 1 between the Scorpions and the Mambo. Kicking off right now. Mambo over in the 2nd pick slot. Scorpions in 1st pick. In a difficult team, I think, Miff, to pick ban against this Hex Mambo squad, because it feels like anyone in any of these lanes can have a big game and carry their team.
Yeah, generally it seems like a lot of teams agree that the answer to this team is at least limiting what Trix Tank can do. I argue Trix Tank is likely the X factor of Hex Mambo. He's very willing to play these aggressive Guardians. This is unironically, that's pretty good.
Are you taking your vote back?
No, I like that. Trix Tank is the Hex factor of the Mambo. He goes towards these picks like Bacchus. He likes to play these very aggressive selections, will almost act as a pseudo-secondary jungler for his team. And when he's allowed that space, when he's allowed that aggressive styling, the rest of the team just falls in line with them. So limiting Trix Tank, I think, certainly one way to address the Mambo.
Yeah, Trix Tank, a terrifying support when playing towards the top of his game. One way to alleviate some of that pressure over in the duo lane that Trix Tank may bring out is pick maybe the strongest ADC, Medusa. We have seen a high level of play, high level of priority in this Medusa pick over the last couple of weeks. So no surprise that the Scorpions end up reaching towards Medusa with that first pick. Zero's Myth, I think a storied career as well in his own right. Loves these styles of picks. The Toth is so strong for Zero's and in his career. And Trix Tank still ends up getting something that I normally would synergize with Trix Tanks in the Sobek.
Yeah, but we do have to say, you know, Deathwalker on this team now in the
true.
solo lane
You're right.
has gone towards this pick over there as well, so not completely willing to say it is Sobek in support, although I hope it is, because I think that is his better role right now. That said, with Bacchus now being taken on the other side, that being one of Trix Tank's favorite picks, maybe that does limit this again away from Deathwalker. You know, Trix Tank just wants to be comfortable, so Sobek certainly fits that styling. If it is Sobek and Hachiman together, that is a lane that is a blast from the past. That's like very Season 7, maybe like early Season 8. You're not very aggressive in lane. Your kill pressure is going to be very dependent on the combo of EI Jutsu and Pluck together. You want to pluck them back, stun them immediately. Up against a Bacchus and Medusa, though,
yeah,
I don't think you take that fight ever.
I mean, how about the priority of Hachiman just in general? I mean, Medusa gets picked, Heimdall gets banned out. Are we in a spot now where you kind of have Heimdall, Medusa, depending on the matchup, maybe one or two other hunters in like the top priority, and then the rest of the hunters are just sort of pooled together beneath that?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. There's still like power rankings. I mean,
of course.
They're closer, like after that initial like that top 3 selections. But Hachiman right now does not impress me too much. He doesn't really go towards or utilize some of the more popular hunter builds as well as some of these other picks. I think if you're looking towards safety, I would still probably say the Heimdall's banned out, of course. The Jingwei's probably a little bit better right now, but it's not a bad pick. Like Hachiman has always been at least fringe meta, if not top of the meta, because of his ability to like stimulate around these objectives, the Heavenly Banner, decent safety in lane, thanks to the CC Immune Ultimate. He's okay. He's okay.
I will pivot away from the Hachiman and look at the Mulan, because I feel like, and I hope I'm remembering this properly, I feel like I remember Deathwalker tweeting something about how Mulan is like he didn't enjoy playing Mulan as a pick.
He said it was bad.
Maybe, right, he thought Mulan was a bad pick. And then in that same either day or week, played a Mulan game that was just like absurdly good, if I remember properly, like win off on the Mulan. So I have high expectations for this Mulan pick. High potential, but also the potential to get shut down in team fights later on in the game. We've talked a lot about this Mambo draft myth. What do you think about what the Scorpions have here? Medusa, Daji, Bacchus, Camazotz, and Tiamat. Plenty of dive to get into that backline.
Yeah, I might top to bottom prefer the Scorpion draft just because it's so easy to execute on. It's more in line with that standard meta. And I think it's going to be able to, if it pulls a lead, just keep rolling with it.
Game number 1 between the Mambo and the Scorpions starting right now. Can the tenure and the expectations behind this Mambo squad win the day in game number 1, or can the potentially better draft for the Aaru Scorpions end up turning things around? I think a fun matchup over here in the solo lane myth, where for a lot of last year, maybe in the year before, what do we call them? The wet noodle fights. You just hang out, slap one another around in the solo lane, not super high kill pressure. I think when you get a Mulan and a Camazotz in lane, maybe a little heightened potential for some fireworks.
Yeah, until level 5. Once they're both level 5,
yeah, no.
all that potential probably gone. CC immunity in both their ultimates, very good space control as well. Ugly One removes himself from the playfield and just walks away or floats away. And Mulan is able to dash herself out of the majority of these situations. But pre-5, both of them very susceptible to 1v1s in the lane. You'd probably have to talk about lane clear in that scenario, and I'd give slight favoritism over towards the Ugly One. Screech, just a very versatile tool to not only apply poke, but also to clear out these waves. If you stand in the wave, you can block out the Screech, right? But then the Echo location bat thing will bounce back towards you. You gain additional power, which means that you're able to use those cleave auto attacks a little bit easier in the lane. So it's a very interesting matchup of, do I need to keep my minions alive, or am I willing to allow this Camazotz to just straight up be stronger? Right.
Brief pause. We get right back into game number 1 here, Miff. And I think mid lane between Picorino and Zeros, one to follow along with this set as well. This set, of course, but this game specifically. And the way both of the builds go, you know, we assume flat pen early on. Not we assume, it will be. We already know that, at least for the first item. feels like later on in the game, we saw this a lot yesterday, Tiamat still at that powerhouse spot where the damage charts just absolutely climb for Tiamat late in the game. And Thoth is something that we've seen prioritized from early on this year, continues to be prioritized here in this set. Do you think Thoth has the ability to go toe-to-toe with this Tiamat later on in the game?
Toe-to-toe, no, but Thoth from a range can do it on his own. Johnny able to pick up first blood for himself, but it's a 2-for-1 trade. The Aaru Scorpions able to turn that one around. And, you know, that pre-5 kill pressure we were just talking about. I mean, wasn't expecting it to be a 2v2.
No.
But that's one of the times you can start your rotation over early. Unfortunate for Mambo that a lane that I would argue probably stronger in the 2v2 loses out so heavily. And even Ugly One pulling pretty far ahead off that.
Well, good news for Deathwalker is teleport picked up, so you can get back to lane a little bit quicker as the wave ends up crashing in with the tower. So you're going to fall a bit behind if you're this Mulan. And the 101 start, just totally better than what Deathwalker has at the 0-1-1. So an extra death, but still he's able to grab an assist on the Mulan. But you have to imagine whenever Ugly One is able to go back to base, that itemization back will be a little bit stronger. But at the moment, you know, Deathwalker comes back, tier 2 in that shield. This is exactly how it happens. Looks like French Emperor just kind of walks into lane after Ugly One was already poked out. And I can't blame Johnny for that one. I'm jumping in there too every single time. But Ugly One just plays this one well alongside French Emperor and turns it around for a 2v1.
Yeah, it seems like Deathwalker didn't realize Ugly One had that blink, steps up a little too far, and gets turned on immediately.
We do it again.
Blue buff invade. Can Johnny get out?
That's a double stun from Johnny beneath the tier 2 tower, but there is way too much damage. There's a lot of burst damage. I did not expect that to roll through. I'm not sure that Johnny did either. One last auto attack is all the Aaru Scorpions need here, but it won't be there. E-Chrome and Trix Tank backpedaling away, and the Scorpions, Myth, they're bringing pressure all over the map in the first couple minutes.
Yeah, this is very reminiscent of what we saw from Hex Mambo in their last set, in that they were trying to play an older style of Smite. They're playing on the previous meta on current patch, whereas these other teams are playing more in line with what is standard across the board in the North American SCC, the rest of the EU SCC, SPL, picks, relics, all these selections making a little bit more sense for the current meta, and Hex Mambo getting slightly outpaced throughout the early. Seems as if it's the battle of tenure and competitive experience versus that New Age style of play, and right now, New Age is winning out.
And New Age feeling just fine. 1.5k gold up already at the minute and 30-second mark, 1.3k in the experience department as well. It's this next rotation of the buffs where I'm going to keep my eyes open. Johnny's still down at level 4, level 5 for the French Emperor. And Palau so strong at burning beads, but also setting up kills. So Johnny zeros E-Chrome, 3 sets of beads that you've got there. Trix Tank, of course, has lurking in the waters. So Myth, there are ways to counter out the ultimate of the French Emperor on Hex Mambo's side, and you have to be precise with those chains.
You do, but there's ways to burn out some of those beads outside of the French Emperor. Easier said than done, but Calvin can do it with this Bacchus. The burp, a very consistent stun tool, could make you a little bit more likely to pop that defensive relic. Even Davey. This one's a big if. The Petrify ultimate, if you're looking at it, you're probably going to have to beads those as well. So French Emperor, who likely going to be the primary beads burner, the CC immunity remover. But he's got some help.
Oh my god. Ugly One ends up getting Ragnaroked back.
That's crazy.
Want to close the gap a little bit, though. Johnny brutalizes back over the wall. And it looks like will survive. Ugly One is just so strong right now. Deathwalker will be chained, and the French Emperor is on a killing spree. This Daji unchained Myth in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, Hex Mambo just getting bullied out on the right-hand side. Can they find something on the left? Calvin may have stepped too far forward.
But will belly flop away. It's a mounted archery in from E-Chrome, and Trix Tank finds the second kill of the game for the Hex Mambo. Petrify from Davey just plugs down a little bit of damage on the back end of this fight. And the outpacing is just so palpable right now on the right side of the map. I mean, this Camazot's so strong. Deathwalker's been underneath tower for the last couple of minutes. And I've been consistently surprised by just how much damage with Blackthorn on Ugly One and Jotuns on French Emperor is being output. But Johnny and Deathwalker feel like they just can't operate on the right side of the map.
And you can already see the builds are looking very confident from the Scorpions. If I'm not mistaken, French Emperor could go in towards that hi-rez Lament tree if he so chooses, get that 10% penetration as well as some cooldown online very early. Or could be moving in towards that Transcendence. Ugly One, similarly, going down that tree, will likely pick up the Transcendence for himself. And considering about a level and a half lead for the Kamazad, it's about the exact same thing for the Daji out of the jungle. I think you're allowed to go for that slower build in the solo because does it seem like he's slowed down at all? Deathwalker stuck in his tower.
Yeah, stuck beneath tier 1 for the last few minutes. 1 level deficit over in the solo lane was and still is 2 levels out in the jungle. French Emperor has Blink as well. Small meeting of the minds on the left side of mid lane here. As Calvin will have to belly flop away. French Emperor is here. That's usually where killing's been happening so far this game, affecting all 4 of the kills that the Aaru Scorpions have. Jump in from Johnny. Looks like lurking in the waters out from Trix Tank. Is that a go button? French Emperor says yes. Echrome mounted archery is away, but there's still a chase happening over in the other side of the jungle as Johnny will grab the Ragnarok onto the French Emperor, who goes up into the pal out, hits 1 chain, immediately beads out by Johnny. So beads plus Ragnarok have to get used, but now it's French Emperor plucked back. Zeros rotates over from mid, and Final Judgment's enough to grab the kill.
Picarino and Calvin trying to escape. It's an EI Jutsu forward from Echrome. 4 stack of Hex Mambo on the left-hand side. Can Zeros connect this route? Could buy time for the rest of the team to rotate in, but Hex Mambo not willing to stick their ground. Don't want to keep up that fight, and instead reset themselves. 4 versus 2, but still behind, not confident in your ability to turn that one around. And speaking of confidence, the Scorpions certainly playing with it. That was a tier 2 tower dive very early on in this game. Does at least burn away the beads and ultimate from Johnny, so once French Emperor's ultimate comes back up, can start to rotate around the map and try and find that target yet again.
Myth, would you argue that Spear of the Magus is, I won't say unconventional in the sense that it's flat pen, and that's often, you know, we see flat pen in the first couple of items anyway. But would you say seeing Spear of the Magus over Deso or Divine Ruin is unconventional?
This early in the build, yeah, 100%. You're getting a little bit of lifesteal, I suppose, early on. Going to be able to sustain in the lane relatively easily. That passive, still pretty impactful. You get a percentage more damage on whoever you are targeting out. And considering that Picarino is likely going to be following up on CC pretty consistently, Primordial Onslaught going to proc that very easily. I'm not too upset about it. I'll see how the rest of the build rounds out because he seems to be going pretty unorthodox through and through. Could be Chronos Pendant, could be a Charon's Coin. We'll keep our eyes on Picarino.
It could be prioritizing cooldown if that is a Chronos Pen. He'll get 30% with the Sands of Time starter. I've also seen percent pen sometimes early in these builds as well, depending on how the defense is looking over on the other side. Not much of it outside of the Gauntlet of Thebes for Trix Tank. So we'll see. Keep track what Picarino is building a little bit later on. Zero's had a great fight just a moment ago for the Hex Mambo. He's got Spear of Desolation into something else in the flat pen tree in just a moment, but Echrome's got to be careful here. Does have beads, does have mounted archery. Calvin, Frenzy, no blink, and no chance. Echrome wary of what's going on. Enough ward coverage over on the left side of the map that Echrome was never under any real big threat. But I do go back to Zeros here, Myth. The 1 level lead over in the mid lane. Maybe the only comfortable spot on the map right now for Mambo.
It is, but fighting around a Thoth this early on when your front line is slightly behind is going to be difficult, right? Like, the answer to Thoth is close gap onto him, and the answer to that gap close is having somebody tanky standing between you and them. Not exactly the case if Johnny's 2 levels down in the jungle. Your Soul Eater's still a level down, so your Initiator is going to be lacking. Trix Tank, not exactly playing that standard front line. It's mainly displacement with Sobek. You pull someone back, then you fall back with them, try and lock them down with that tail whip, rather than sitting in front of whoever it is on the Scorpions that is aggressing and making sure that they stay there instead of closing gap. So even though Zeros has got a lead, it's going to be hard to use it.
Block on the French Emperor immediately into the Ragnarok, and how about that CC chain for the Hex Mambo? Should be a kill onto Zeros, it is by Picarino. Now the chase is on by Trix Tank. Pluck will be up shortly on the other end of this fight. Picarino has beads, maybe waiting for the Pluck to roll through, but Trix Tank misses it. There's enough damage from Johnny, though, to make things interesting. Belly flop up from Calvin, and one last tower shot would have put down this Fenrir, but now the chase is on. An ugly one has eyes for Johnny.
Johnny just going to try and die to Phoenix potentially here if he can stay out of combat for enough time. can make sure that kill bounty doesn't go over to anyone
No.
important. And he is
did it.
successful in doing so. Blink forward from Ugly One, does not connect the Screech, and loses out on that kill pressure. Well played from Johnny with some of that SPL tenure rearing its head there. But still not an ideal situation for Hex Mambo, considering they started that fight with a pick. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Sure, Zeros does damage, but if no one's going to peel for him, he's just going to keep dying like that.
Yeah, only has beads right now. Zeros was just sort of jumped on by Picarino. Petrify out from Davey. We've seen a lot of this over in the duo lane. Just kind of ultimates exchange for a little bit of poke damage. See if you can catch the enemy ADC in an awkward spot. But E-Chrome, outside of taking a little bit of damage, won't be under any big threat. Unlike the Gold Fury that the Scorpions have pulled and started up for themselves here. And it's burning quickly to Hex Mambo, not in range. Unless E-Chrome can make something happen up and over the wall, he will not. And the Scorpions grab a sneaky early Gold Fury.
Yeah, that gold lead and experience lead now starting to get a little bit into the danger zone. I like to equate 2.5K to, all right, guys, we need to start slowing this down. You get to 3, 4K. That's where people are probably pulling about an entire item ahead. Got to start to limit that gold wherever you can. Pyromancer could be an option for Hex Mambo. They've got decent ability to start shredding away these objectives. Great secure from this Thoth in mid. Gonna need a couple more levels from Johnny, though. Seems like he's going for a hybrid ability/auto attack style build with Berserker Shield in the second slot. Depending on whether or not he's decided to max out his first or third ability, or whether or not some of those points are finding their way towards Seething Howl, you're gonna get some certain degrees of success from this build. But if he is maxing Seething Howl, the opportunity to start moving in towards Pyromancer, pretty high.
How about, it looks like
3 points.
Yeah, 3 points. So have a little bit of extra damage on that. Looks like Deathwalker able to stabilize over in the solo lane right now. Blackthorn plus Transcendence for Ugly One has plenty of damage, but Deathwalker into the Nemean after the Glad Shield. Able to sustain out, really stabilize, I still think a good word for this, stabilize this lane. Because early on, Miff, it didn't feel like Deathwalker was going to have the ability to do much. Still feels like the pressure is pushing against Deathwalker. But at least able to hang out. You know, you can extend underneath, out from underneath your tier 1 tower a little bit. It feels like a 1-level lead is about as good as it gets for Deathwalker based on the way the early game went.
Yeah, now with Nemean, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for French Emperor to burst out. You can block stack that first ability. You've already started to level up some of your own abilities thanks to the training exercise or training mastery, Mulan's passive. So now has some sustain built into the kit. With Glad Shield as well.
Did I not say
additional
Nemean?
survivability.
What did I say?
What did you say? I don't
said
know.
Glad Shield.
Yeah, well, they have both.
Maybe I just ignored Nemean for some reason. That was the
go
one
to
I wanted to
Pyro.
highlight. Bad on me on my job. And bad on me for not seeing the Pyromancer go down. The Scorpions grab it. And there's a fight breaking out afterwards. Deathwalker left alone with the Scorpions. And the Mulan will fall early on in this fight. Johnny trying to make something happen on the backside. Into the Ragnarok he goes, but out of the fight as well. Trixtank now alone. One by one, these frontliners of the Hex Mambo left in a pile of Scorpions. And so it's Pyromancer plus kill for the Scorpions, further extending out this gold lead.
Yeah, early plays from the Scorpions, just controlling these neutral objectives. I thought there would be more presence of mind from Hex Mambo there. The ability to force off these objectives is pretty high. Just send Trixtank in, Tail Whip in this very small Pyromancer area makes it very difficult to hold on to aggro of some of these objectives. Zeros with his ultimate has some very high steal potential, but the Aaru Scorpions, unconcerned with superior zone and a slight lead in the early, are able to secure themselves the second neutral objective of the game, and doesn't seem like anybody's really slowing down. Johnny, I think, has really relegated himself to, hey, I need to stay afloat. I need to just make sure I'm keeping my head above water status right now. Only about a level down on French Emperor, which is good considering the pacing that French Emperor was able to establish early on, 3-3 for Aaru Scorpions jungler, as opposed to the 1-3 of Hex Mambo. Once Johnny finishes up this item, once this Hydra's Lament is finished, that's really going to start helping out his burst. That's when we need to see some more from Hex Mambo's jungler.
Now look at French Emperor's build on the other side. All the damage that's there. Crusher now completed already, as you highlighted earlier in the game. Hydra's plus Jotun's Wrath. Saw a good fight from Picarino, who did end up finishing the Chronos Pendant. Petrify needed to be canceled out there by the mounted archery. And E-Chrome will live to fight another day. Aegis already gone. So that's a winning trade for Davey, regardless of the way that you slice it. But I do think Picarino now in a strong spot, Myth. 30% CDR, Spear the Magus. Looks like another flat pen item after that. The Tiamat at this point feels like can really start to control some of these fights.
It can. I wonder if that's going to be Spear of Desolation just to finish up the 40% cooldown.
Yeah, why not?
Or if it could be an Ob Shard to really get some of that penetration in the build that he's missing out early on. Trixtank just waddling nearby. Doesn't go for much there. Just spots out the back. Not much they can do with that information, considering the Gold Fury is not alive just yet. Thought maybe we'd see Hex Mambo push in aggressively and take down this Tier 1 tower, but instead, gonna go pick up some mid camps for themselves. Look, this is slow pacing from both of these teams, and only one benefiting from it right now, and that's the Aaru Scorpions.
Yep.
Once we start looking at this next objective, the Primal Fury spawning in less than 10 seconds, that's another spot the Aaru Scorpions can force a fight on the map. And if the Hex Mambo don't show up, or if they aren't able to at least contest this objective, if they don't get it themselves, this gold lead is very quickly ballooning to the point where the Scorpions can do just about no wrong on the map.
Yeah, you were talking about 3K. We're starting to raise some alarm bells. That's right where we're at going into this next Fury fight. And it was a full bot outside of the Tier 1 item, a fully completed Ob Shard for Picarino in the mid lane. And so diversifying where the damage is coming from now. You got a little flat pen, a little lifesteal, Chronos Pendant for extra spam. And then now an Ob Shard. And so I'm very worried about this team especially if the fights keep going the way they have been, Myth. It feels like Picarino has been able to sort of freely operate in a lot of these engagements, whereas the dive and the backline threat that the French Emperor and the rest of the Aaru Scorpions bring, although just the one death for Zeros, has felt maybe a little bit more uncomfortable. Davey aggressed on by Trixtank. Body blocks doing their best. But Davey doesn't end up actually taking that much damage. Sends a little bit Trixtank's way. On the way out, and the Medusa will live. It looks like maybe one final reset for both of these duo lanes before both teams could potentially rotate over towards the Primal Fury.
Major power spike for E-Chrome, finishing up that Wind Demon in the third slot. Going to have some crit chance available to him, whereas Davey has got some additional penetration thanks to the Executioner. So, if the Aaru Scorpions are the aggressors onto the objective, are better suited for taking the actual team fight. Davey going to be very well suited for shutting down Deathwalker in that front line, or even Trixtank to a certain extent, whereas if it's Hex Mambo aggressing on the objective, they shred thanks to that crit chance. E-Chrome going to have a very good chance at just landing a couple crits, really starting to drop this objective low and forcing some threat to use that superior secure that Thoth brings.
Well, Primal Fury started, dropped though by the Aaru Scorpions. Walker takes a whole chunk of damage from Picarino. Ugly one did take some damage, sustains it back up due to being the Camazotz. And it looks like the Scorpions pull out the Fury, considering a fight after the fact, but Hex Mambo won't end up committing on a fight either. And just the presence of the Hex Mambo enough to make the Scorpions think twice. Davey, oh no, you're about to walk into a world of hurt, but reads it as best as he can. Dashes away, petrifies out. Gotta be damage here, but look at the Aegis. The timing is perfect. There will be enough damage for a kill after the fact, and it's Johnny who picks it up.
Johnny low, Trixtank out of mobility. It's just Calvin nearby, so not a whole lot of kill potential here on the left-hand side of the map. So now Hex Mambo in a very good position to start looking towards this objective proper. That said, it was a very expensive kill. Cost you 3 ultimates, E-Chrome, Trixtank, and Johnny losing out on those relics. Blink lost for Johnny as well.
Yep.
Could be that Hex Mambo overcommitted to that. If the Aaru Scorpions are privy to it, as Hex Mambo has pulled the objective, I think they're strong enough to stop it.
Well, it's only Calvin over here on left. Trixtank will provide some peel. Looks like Final Judgment is all the Hex Mambo needed to grab their first big objective of the game. Is the chase on for Calvin? No, it's not. And over on the other side, Myth will trade out for a Pyromancer. So maybe a net neutral trade when you consider Davey still back and respawning. Scorpions maybe just a bit behind on that. Bring it right back with the Pyromancer.
Yeah, Gold Fury always going to be slightly more value at this portion of the game than the Pyromancer itself, but considering we're 19 going on 20 minutes in, could be that the movement speed passive that you get from Pyromancer going to help out around these Fire Giant dances if we see Davey start to rotate out of this lane. Haven't seen it just yet. This Medusa has been largely landlocked to the duo. But once these ADCs start to leave, we are at that portion of the game where Fire Giant is palpable.
Davey has ultimate, but no relics. Petrify out. And that'll be turned around by E-Chrome and Trixtank. Kill will drop here. And it's a killing spree for Trixtank, though not without some pushback from Davey. And so in the last like 2 minutes, Davey spent 1.5 minutes of them dead, and this should be, yeah, a widened lead for Echrome. He's got the 1 level advantage over the 0-2 Medusa. And so the obvious emphasis on reinitiating onto Davey is here for the Hex Mambo and putting a lot of eggs in the Echrome basket.
Hey, we could see it happen just again, right? Like, he's 30 seconds away from respawn. He's going to have 20 seconds left on those relics. Could be that Trixtank hovers nearby and tries to shut him down once more. I think Hex Mambo have done a very good job of slowing down the pace of this game. Only 4,000, 3,000 or so gold behind right now. Mainly the experience, and experience has been largely equalized on the map where it matters, and Echrome pulling largely ahead. Should have done a good job there as well. This game, completely even as far as I'm concerned in team fight presence. I still think that the Scorpions have got a better draft for the 5-on-5 engagement, but we haven't seen a 5-on-5 engagement just yet.
No, we haven't. A lot of individual picks. I've talked plenty about Picarino and the way his build has gone. Zero's in a very strong spot as well. Spear of Desolation into Divine Ruin. That's that strong flat pen duo that we so often see. And then Charon's coin, good for some percent pen. Once you get those stacks rolling, feels very strong. Davey does have both relics back. Trixtank will take the belch over here on this side of the map, and so no big kill pressure onto the Medusa right now. And then it looks like Soul Reaver after that for Zeros. And we haven't seen much from Zeros this game, Myth. Bottom of the damage charts.
He's waiting for buying his time.
Right, buying his time. My point is, we haven't seen how much damage Zeros can do because he hasn't been in any fights. And so I think it could catch us and maybe the Scorpions off guard with the way that build looks.
Yeah, I am curious to see which book he's going towards so late in the game. I'm not even going to fuzzy a guess here. We'll just wait for Zeros to answer it. I think Soul Reaver is likely the answer, but...
Well, he's not going...
Well, it could be like a poly. It could be like a poly.
No shot.
It could be... I don't know. That'd be pretty cool.
Is that something people build? Poly on Thoth?
No, not really.
No?
But we don't really see Soul Reaver in this style of build this early on Thoth either, generally.
Is this early in the build?
I mean, generally in that slot, we'll see like Rada Tahuti.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Fair.
Some penetration, larger infusion of power.
Yeah, fair.
So the book just being there is a question mark in and of itself. And you know what? Those questions, those riddles, that's the spice of life.
And they're answered, Myth. It is Book of, or I nearly said Book of Thoth.
You made me look back down. I was like, no way.
It is a poly. No, it is Soul Reaver for Zeros. Chunk damage, to be sure, for both of these mid laners. Similar builds. Some percent pen, some flat pen. And then the Soul Reavers on either side of those builds. So, all eyes for me on which mid laner can stay safer, more safe. Is safer a word?
Yeah.
Can stay more safe in the back.
Safer has got to be a
little bit of extra
word.
peel from the rest of their team. Pyromancer will be on the same respawn timer as the Oni Fury. And so will we see another trade out, or will we see one of these two teams prioritize those objectives enough to want to fight in a 5v5. Calvin takes a little plug damage. Trixtank plucks in French Emperor. Final Judgment. Let it fly. Zeros keeps it in the back pocket. Up into the powwow goes French Emperor. That pulls Trixtank right back in. Big golden and looking for a kill was Johnny, but nothing's there on the other end.
Yeah, not a whole lot used in the relic department either. Just the blink from Trixtank so far. So most people can be relatively strong at this point. Blink forward from Ugly One. Tries to sink some damage into Deathwalker, misses all of his abilities, and gets his auto
take any damage?
No, he got block stacks, man.
That's right.
That's just meme-y stuff. Deathwalker got a relic for free, in the easiest terms of the word. He didn't even start that fight. He didn't want any of it.
No,
that was all Ugly One.
He was walking away. Deathwalker keeps his health bar full after he returns some damage on Ugly One. Wow, all these ultimates dropping for the Aaru Scorpions right now. You don't have Powwow. You don't have Bat Out of Hell. Relic, that's Blink, that's missing for the Ugly One. Can the Hex Mambo force the issue? That's the big question. They're going to pull the Pyromancer. The Scorpion's probably smart not to put up a big contest here. The Pyromancer will go over to Hex Mambo, further closing up that gold gap.
And this is why I said like 4 minutes ago that I thought this game was dead even. The Aaru Scorpions had a 3K gold lead from the 10-minute mark onward, just about, and have not been able to extend it whatsoever, whereas the Hex Mambo have just been, we got to stop doing the Hex Mambo. It's just Hex Mambo. Whereas Hex Mambo has just been able to slowly close it up the entire time. And now we're starting to reach a point where...
What are you saying we? Have I been saying the Hex Mambo?
I sure hope so. I hope it wasn't just me.
Or else I threw you under the bus for no reason.
Yeah. No, it was a we.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks. Can you say it just like once for me right now?
Say the Hex Mambo.
Hey, there you have it. We've been saying it too much.
Yeah, unlucky for me. The only Fury still stands. So does a Fire Giant, though. Aaru Scorpions considering it.
0%.
0% on the Fire Giant. They will back off. Myth. Not always variety of the spice of life, but I'm the spice of life. And I'm the spice of your life.
said mystery, man.
And mystery is too. There's a lot of spices in life.
That spice cabinet is so full.
Yeah, we wait
so
for
many flavors.
wait for one of these two teams to pull out the Fire Giant. Oni Fury completely forgotten right now, as the Scorpions were just testing the Hex Mambo reaction time a moment ago, but the reaction time was quick, and Hex Mambo were there to call the Aaru Scorpions on it. Both teams have reached level 20 in all the necessary categories. Level 19 for Trixtank, Calvin just behind at level 18, but still in range of upgrading those starter items. So level 17 really what matters for those support picks. Small gathering over here on right, Myth, and this might be the most even fight that we've had in the last 15 minutes of game time.
It would be. Good damage already. Deathwalker able to poke out a little bit towards Calvin. And now it's the full collapse. The Mambo thought maybe we'd see Trex just go for the pull there, but not the case.
Whoa, big Intoxicate from Calvin, who's got eyes for Echrome, but Echrome hasn't taken much damage at all. Mounted archery out of the back of this fight as the surge forward from the Aaru Scorpions down the right side of the map. Palau connects a couple of chains, but the CC immunity in the ultimates help out Trixtank for the time being. The detonation of the damage on the other side of working in the waters is nice. That's sending some pressure back towards the Scorpions, and this is where Zeros can make his money.
Sheesh.
First kill of the fight drops, and it's ugly one on the other end of a final judgment.
4 Scorpions skittering our way towards their own towers will not be able to re-establish any sort of defensive positioning around the Fire Giant, so Mambo going to go ahead and take this one for themselves. And this is a game pace that Mambo is just very used to. Not even just this year, not even just the last year. Each one of these players at some point has played on a very reactive team. Over the last 5 years of competitive SMITE history, any team that Zeros has been on particularly is one that is very apt to go towards these counterpunch styles, and that's exactly what lines up here. The Scorpions ahead for the entirety of the game, fumble a couple of times around these team fights, and you're not allowed to do that against these veteran squads because you find yourselves in this exact position. Fire Giant on 5 members of the Chaos team. Gold lead completely turned around for the first time this game, but also negligible because we're 27 minutes in. We don't care at all about 2,000 gold right now. Maybe Trixtank cares a little bit just because he's like 1 item away from finishing up that build, but otherwise, this is exactly what Mambo was looking for. And now their siege potential becomes the topic of conversation. Any team that's got a Thoth on it's got pretty good siege potential. Yeah, not only are you shutting down these towers a little bit more quickly with that hieroglyphic wall, they're able to spawn up, make your auto attack stronger, not only your own, but also your hunters. But that poke potential that Thoth brings, which is incredibly strong in lane, is much easier to apply in these tower defense situations. You got 5 fish essentially in a circular barrel, trying to protect that barrel. Just shoot in there. Yep. The barrel's the tower. That's the analogy.
Surely you'll connect with someone or something, right? At that point, you're just playing the odds game. Oni Fury gets secured by Hex Mambo, and that'll help out with a siege push or 2, as it looks like the Scorpions realize there's no point in defending these tier 2 towers. Our best chance is underneath one of these Phoenixes. As Hex Mambo walk themselves forward, all 5 ultimates ready to go. Blink is there on the necessary initiators between Johnny and Trixtank. I think big that Deathwalker has finally gotten back to a point of being effective and contentious in this game, where Ugly One had more than enough pressure as the early part of this game rolled through. So maybe, Myth, you get a little damage with a couple of these first minion waves, but the Oni waves, though, still can be cleared quickly, will help out. Are we even waiting for the Oni waves? Calvin plucked into the back, Petrify, let fly, but doesn't find much. Deathwalker will take half of the HP bar and damage, but that's it for this initial engagement.
Resustain up with that Fire Giant, or once that minion wave spawns, there you go. Able to heal with that second ability.
Whoa.
Aaru Scorpions going in hot.
Calvin, Blink, Intoxicate, and how about this dash to the back line? This is the dive we've been talking about. And Zeros and Echrome running for the hill, but the 5-man group with the Scorpions, it's not paying off. This is where Zeros, this is where Echrome can find their damage all in the AoE. Johnny has got a couple kills. Echrome has got a couple kills. Ugly one, the last alive, and the Hex Mambo. I did it again. Hex Mambo.
I knew it, dude.
We'll win
it's
game
always
one.
been you. It was never me. Look, if you are going to dive that heavily onto zeros, you have to kill zeros. Because the second you've used all those cooldowns, the turnaround was there. And it was easy for Johnny to work his way from the center of the map all the way behind that team fight. Speaking of zeros, a little bit of toxicity on the map. He tries to chase out that
he's just
last
trying
kill.
to climb up the damage charts. He's embarrassed
Ah, I see.
that he's so far down on the Thoth.
It's not a lot. 8,900, that's, mate, you know
yeah,
what?
but it was 8,900 important damage from every bit of that 8,900.
He connects, somebody died, all right, every time.
Every single time. 8,900 damage of the time. It worked every time. Hex Mambo turned this game around. I think a great early game showing from the Scorpions here, Myth. But by the time we got into group up time, felt like the right targets were prioritized by Hex Mambo. Game one, over to the veterans. Can the Scorpions bounce back in game number two? Stick around and find out. fourth game where both teams had an opportunity to win goes the way of the team that was not winning by 3,000 gold at 10 minutes. Hex Mambo turnaround game number 1. Team fight a little bit better down the stretch. Find a pick, find a fire giant. End up finding a win here in game number 1. I think a win, Miff, that, of course, Hex Mambo are happy to grab. But a lot to be gleaned, I think, from that early game on not making life harder for ourselves down the stretch.
Yeah, I think had Hex Mambo just participated a little bit more so after that initial fumble in the soul lane, they probably wouldn't have fallen as far behind, but even with that said, they bided their time very well, got to the portion of the game where Zeros was allowed to start free casting in some of these fights, where the pulls from Trix Tank were immediately followed up by deaths from whoever he was pulling, and the Scorpions weren't able to line back up yet again. I had said during the initial Ps and Bs that I thought the Aaru Scorpions had the superior 5-on-5 composition, just top to bottom. I liked their draft more. And early game, they used it very well. Just individual pieces, 2v2s, 3v3s in the map, all went their way. But there came a point, 15, 16 minutes in, where the Scorpions simply stopped doing things proactively and with the lead. If you've got the lead and you've got the superior composition for the fight, I would be doing everything in my power to create scenarios where you are taking fights. Did not see that from the Scorpions.
No, duo lane looked good for Hex Mambo this game. Combined 5-0 and 14 across the duo lane. Good damage numbers there as well. And again, you know, I think a humble 9,000 damage from Zeros.
Modest.
Sure, Trix Tank did 3,500 more damage than Zeros did.
That's right.
That damage stuck, right? I mean, we mentioned that 9,000 damage was an important 9,000 damage. And Johnny didn't output the most, but it was an important 8,500 damage from Johnny.
Yeah, and even to speak to your point, I believe Johnny, as well as Zeros, I know for a fact Zeros had some anti-heal. So of that damage that he applied,
right,
it stuck.
It didn't get healed up a small percentage more. Game number 1, over to Hex Mambo. Let's see what game number 2 has in store for picks and bans. Hex Mambo's still over in the second pick slot. And so, you know, Miff, this is a hard one where you talk about adapting as a set goes on through picks and bans. What types of changes might you consider making?
Adapting ain't in this one.
Yeah, I know, adapting's not, Miff. I'm sad about that. But what types of changes can you make? I mean, if you're the Scorpions, you realize that that game was in your favor. We just kind of stopped pushing our lead, and so maybe picks and bans wasn't quite the issue.
No, the Scorpions, I think, can look at their draft and say, hey, we established a lead early. We held on to the lead for actually 10 minutes. You don't need to concern yourselves with the draft. I think you can go back towards that exact same style and not worry about it. Whereas Mambo, on the other end, won the game, so, you know, grain of salt, did fall behind early and stayed behind for the first 20 minutes of the game. Maybe we see them make some more significant adjustments.
All right, 2 questions. How sure are you, Miff, that it's not the Hex Mambo?
100%, because there's no "the" on any of the graphics.
There's no "the" on any of our graphics for any of our teams.
Okay, but like, what is a Hex Mambo?
I
Like, you say the Scorpions, like
right.
that makes sense.
My second question was going to be: is there any other team in SCC or SPL,
okay,
where we don't put a "the" in front of it? I'm going to let you think about it as I catch back up with picks and bans. Sobek and Thoth ends up being the first 2 picks here for Hex Mambo. As Miff's still deep in thought. The answer is no, by the way. I say that very confidently, but I really do think the answer is no. A very similar pairing for Hex Mambo in their first 2 picks. Chalk, Soul, and Tiamat. So we're changing up our identity a little bit here. If we're the Aaru Scorpions, we'll stick with the Tiamat, which was one of the saving graces of the early to mid game. But the other 2 picks, Miff, between the Chalk and the Soul, very different.
Follow-up question to your question. Is this all of competitive Smite history?
No, not history, right now.
Right, just right now?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll keep going then. Chernobog ends up being the pick for Hex Mambo out of ADC. You pair that one with Sobek, and you got a real nice looking duo lane over there on the left side of the map. I wonder what you end up pairing with this Soul here, though, Miff, because between a Sobek and a Chernobog, you got to imagine there's some pressure pushing it against the Soul early on in this lane. And so support-wise, you might need a little extra help.
I can't believe you have the gall to ask me a question about the P's and B's after you send me on this
No,
thinker.
I was letting you do your thing.
The answer is no, by the way. I think you were right. I've got the whole SEC list here, and you can put the in front of all of them.
Right, and I'm still thinking that it's Hex Mambo. I think you're right. There's still no the in front of it.
No, it can't
we'll
be the Hex Mambo.
How about this for Deathwalker, Miff? Cullen for Deathwalker in the Soul Lane. Not a pick that we've seen all that often, but a pick I'm still excited to see. And then Amaterasu was all the rage early on here in Season 9. Fell off a little bit, but maybe still in a strong enough spot as an auto attacker. Auto attack centric Bologna receives a lot of love here. Doesn't get picked or banned. Amaterasu and Kukulin both picked over Bologna, who's been one of the highest priority solo laners.
Yeah, curious to see, especially because we know Deathwalker loves Bologna as a pick. That's one of his kind of competitive, storied career games, or gods, rather. Kukulin, I think, very curious to see. Doesn't really have as much pressure from Axe as he once did. Wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Bluestone. Definitely still fights, though.
Can Hex Mambo grab the 2-0 win in our EU SEC set of the day? Say again?
It's a Tainted Steel start for Deathwalker, actually. That's surprising. I guess
and
mitigating some of the healing.
On the other side.
Yeah, so you're going to get a lot less value from the Tainted Steel than you would because you're expecting Death Toll from Amaterasu. I guess maybe Ugly One read the read and has now instead read the reader and has become the reader himself.
Oh, that's too much reading.
You can never read too much.
You don't think?
No, I love books.
You're in a book club, aren't you?
Yeah, sure am.
Are you opening that up to everyone? Private right now.
Yeah, you must have the hi-rez title in-game to join my book club.
Got it. I was about to set you up for failure there. But an interesting chess match over in the solo lane in the early part of this game. When you say there's the same kill potential in the first 5 levels this time as we had in game number 1?
Like across the border in the solo lane.
Mulan and Kamazot's in the solo lane in game 1. Versus the Ama and Kukulin here in game 2.
I would argue at the exact same portion of the game, there is higher kill potential, specifically against this set, which is why he didn't go over towards the solo lane. You don't have that leap until you've got multiple abilities online, and, well, generally you get it towards level 3. So Johnny just says, I'm not going to rotate over there.
Johnny rotates instead to the mid lane. Johnny on set, not a pick we have seen all that often. I would argue we've seen first blood in the duo lane. We won't see it this time, though, as Calvin has to dash away. The unfortunate early game of Ganesh Soul Myth. Maybe something that can be punished by Trixtank and Echrome here. There's just chaos all over the map right now. Zero's being chased beneath the tier 2 tower on the Hex Mambo side of the jungle. So French Emperor may be realizing there's some extra pressure to be had on this early game chalk.
Yeah, I wonder, had he leveled the 3rd ability instead of Torrent, the 2nd ability, whether or not he would have been able to get that kill onto Zeros, just considering 95 damage on that 3rd swing of the auto attack chain. Pretty hefty. I believe both probably sitting around 780 HP right now, so that's a large percentage of your HP bar immediately just from one auto attack. That slow would have gone a long way. You would have at least been able to force out those beats, but instead, Zeros just misses out essentially on an entire wave in mid and some camps as well.
Davey and Calvin only miss out on the shell just a moment ago. Trixtank and Echrome, maybe no surprise, Myth, that this duo lane that Trixtank and Echrome have were able to find maybe the opening thread for first blood in this game. Picarino, there's first blood, and it's over by the mid lane. Johnny runs down Picarino for first blood. French Emperor under a little bit of threat, able to get out of that one, disapparate from Davey, secure the escape. Over on the left side of the map, early pressure building here for Hex Mambo. The Aaru Scorpions kind of reeling in mid and left.
Yeah, you know, you'd expect Mambo to have the advantage in the dual lane on clear, but not this much advantage. And, well, in the solo lane, Ugly One in a little bit of trouble, but not enough lockdowns just yet from either solo laner or jungler of Mambo. Aren't able to lock him down, and instead a dash out will secure Ugly One's life, if not his blue buff, which I believe he did get.
Purple buff gets dropped. Blue buff not picked up by anyone over on the right side of the map. Hex Mambo if you can continue this pace, it's a much better look than how game 1 went for Hex Mambo. But by this point, they'd already dropped a couple kills on the right side of the map. Things much more stabilized here. Does Zeros have his dash? That's the question. Yes, he does. And out he goes. I like the activity level, though, of the French Emperor early on here. How about this?
Yikes.
For a solo kill over in the solo lane. Ugly One puts down Deathwalker. And that's an easy as you like kill there. And Right as I'm talking about how Hex Mambo stabilized the right side of the map, that happens.
Yeah, Deathwalker just does not have the fight potential that Amaterasu does at this portion of the game, unless he's in the Rage transformation, but that's conditional, and he was not. Loses out on the beads as well, so could be we see some rotations over towards the soul lane shortly.
Calvin tries to dash back through, throws a silence out towards Trixtank, and how many times have we seen this? One of the two duo laners between Calvin and Davey, down beneath half HP, within kill threshold, but just a bit short by Trixtank and Echrome. I mean, they reach level 5, Trixtank and Echrome do Myth. I mean, lurking in the water is good for a little detonation of damage, but I don't know if the kill pressure necessarily immediately spikes. It's Echrome, his ultimate more for mobility, things like that. It's all about surviving. That's what Picarino's trying to do, but Johnny yet again calls him on it. Now French Emperor being chased down, throws out the axe, and the threat of it enough to keep French Emperor alive.
I don't know. Johnny is still in the chase. Should have that teleport available very shortly. Skewers come up. There's the slow. French Emperor dropped low. He's got some friends nearby, and Johnny will eventually leave. Had Zeros connected the root onto French Emperor, Mans would have just been dead. Does not do it. Deja Vu, by the way. That's the exact same route that Zeros has missed twice so far this game, in the exact same spot. Those left side mid camps, lower end towards the Scorpion's tower line. Well, you know, normally I wouldn't, but you know, he had practice for it. The first one was the practice round.
No. Everything comes in threes. There's going to be one more missed route.
Well, comedy comes in three. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were going to say he was going to hit the third one.
No.
He's going to miss another one.
He's going to miss another one, and then number 4 is when Zeros can be expected.
He'll never miss again.
No, never miss again. 5 minutes, 1,000 gold in the lead. Our Hex Mambo, of course, First Blood helps with that a little bit, but have been able to widen that gap in more traditional manners through invades, things like that, over the last few minutes. French Emperor has been all over the map, Myth. Looks like tried to make some plays, but feeling constantly pressured out by Hex Mambo right now. And so no surprise maybe that the Chalk is active early, but it feels like Johnny has just been a little bit more successful.
Yeah, Johnny just able to do the damage that he needs to early on. It's very similar in playstyle, Set and Chalk, in that you are both generally auto-attack junglers. The majority of Chalk's damage coming from that Axe Toss, the majority of Set's damage coming from that Skewer. Otherwise, it really does come down to autos to finish off your kills. But Skewer applies a slow, whereas Chalk has to stay in range to apply his slow. It has to be very centric around him, which means chase potential better for Johnny.
Luck in the mid lane. French Emperor sent back towards Zeros, who hits him with the final judgment. Looks like Dharmic Pillars were enough there to spread out Hex Mambo.
Whoa.
Avoid any reinitiation. How about that for a burst of damage? Picarino into Divine Ruin first. Flat Pen connecting for almost full value onto Johnny there. Ugly one with a rotation over from solo lane. Just as an insurance policy, looks like all will be quiet here and Hex Mambo won't add another kill.
Yeah, not much of a lead quite yet either for Mambo. Only about 1,200, so I'm not sure that they're going to feel too confident looking towards an objective before they can find a pick. Picarino should be fine here. Has got CC immunity still available, and Deathwalker not exactly the best at locking down gods on this Cucullin. Feels like it's been a while since I've said that name, by the way. When was the last time you got to say Cucullin?
Honestly, maybe when I dressed up as Cucullin for Halloween.
Oh, nice plug. I was Susano.
You were. We had a couple good pictures taken. I genuinely think that might be the last time. We've just not seen a lot of Cucullin recently at all. I love the pick, but just been over-prioritized by other solo laners at the moment. The Amaterasus, the Bellonas, the Kamazatzes, the assassins of the world, Myth, have just taken priority over Cucullin here as of late. Though Deathwalker, you know, if you're going to be a solo laner who's going to play a warrior, but an unconventional warrior, it feels like Deathwalker is going to be the one to do it. Mulan in game 1, and then Cucullin here in game number 2. Calvin drops Dharmic Pillars. Echrome into the wall. Out he goes. That one pretty simple, and it looks like Chernobog will be just fine.
Yeah, very curious usage of the Dharmic Pillars there. Generally, you want to save that until after the dash has been expended by whoever you're trying to use it on, because dash through, you're able to essentially bypass the slow, especially on a Chernobog. Man can just jump into a wall, completely remove himself from the playfield for just a moment. Doesn't jump into a wall like Lina, kind of bounces off instead. And Calvin, well, doesn't really gain anything
in the wall.
for that. Yeah, ish. He's more of a shadow on the wall. Are shadows in walls, or are they on walls?
Well, they're on the wall. So you're right. He dashes onto a wall.
That's right.
Dashes onto a wall and then off the wall.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to bring this up to the casting team as a whole. I feel like we've been saying in the wall just a little too much. It's on the wall.
For Chernobog?
Yeah.
I don't know if we've seen Chernobog enough to be saying in the wall too much. But fair point, Myth. Cast a review live on air. You've heard it here first. We've been saying in the wall too much. And that'll be an immediate action change from this point on.
You're going to say in the wall, guaranteed.
Yeah, probably. You're absolutely right. E-Chrome does have that ultimate now, though, Myth. And so you talk about team fight changing ultimates. Davey, of course, with damage. But if Hex Mambo are able to take some fights on the right side of the map,
dangerous.
E-Chrome can make some changes. This fight, though, on the left side of the map, Dharmic Pillar's down, but only slows down Johnny on his reinitiation. That kept Trix Tank alone with the Scorpions for just a moment of time. Will Johnny find his way back in? A nice skewer of damage into a couple. E-Chrome repositions himself as Calvin has to dash back towards the mid lane. Picorino sends some damage through the gap in the wall. And that'll keep Mambo at bay. Are we fighting over a red buff here? That's the question. Red buff gets dropped down. Johnny continuing to initiate, but the ultimate out of French Emperor, enough to disengage this fight.
That's a lot of resources, a lot of team fight resources lost for the Scorpions. Mainly Dharmic Pillars, that's massive, but even the ultimate from Chalk means that if Mambo are able to, I'd like to see them reset immediately, start to group up towards this Gold Fury, especially considering it's been pulled yet again. Reset, I believe. Davey not quite willing to tank that one up. Look, that's a lot lost. Mambo already playing with a lead. Now would be a great time to force a fight.
Man, how many times have we seen this? French Emperor using the axe as a desperation disengage. Whatever that number is, add one more to it. As Deathwalker had put pressure on the Chalk, who has just not been able to be effective yet this game. 2 levels down to Johnny. 3 levels down to Johnny. As Johnny makes it to level 12 in that same sentence. And Deathwalker was a little bit behind earlier on in this lane. After that solo kill gets dropped, but is now pulled 1 level ahead of Ugly One. And so Hex Mambo in such a strong spot here, Mifflin. Dharmic Pillar is used again by Calvin. This one a lot more effective. Takes the beads off of Zeros, who will just dash away. French Emperor headed beneath the tier 1 tower. Gets the knockup, gets the silence. Where's the dash and the root from Zeros?
No way.
He doesn't need it because Johnny's here and Johnny's on a killing spree. Bad to worse for French Emperor, as the tier 2 tower dive leaves himself dead and Zero's walking away.
And Zero's at least forced to use those beads. Trix Tank in the tornado, unconcerned because he's got Johnny at his back. Picorino over the wall, but only to his death. This set is out of control. 100% kill allocation and participation for the jungler.
Nice words.
Hex Mambo, they're going in.
No, this is This is the Johnny that I was missing last week for this Hex Mambo team and missing in game 1 of this set. Even though Hex Mambo won, and Johnny ended that game with a double kill. Boxing match between E-Chrome and Davey. It was E-Chrome at half HP. This was the Johnny that we saw 2 years ago in the FCC, at moments last year in the SPL.
730 days ago.
Right. At moments last year in the SPL. And expected to return to some of that here in the SEC with Hex Mambo. And so, you know, Johnny, like the hyper carry style of jungler he is, in a very powerful spot now. 4-0 on this set, getting that Transcendence nice and stacked up. Chalk feels kind of squishy right now, Miff. So does Tiamat, so does Ganesh, so does Soul. Feels like there's a lot of targets for Johnny.
Yeah, considering Johnny is higher level than literally everybody on the Scorpions, everyone's probably a pretty good target for Johnny at this point. He has gone for a slightly slower build. Going to be a little while till that Transcendence is fully stacked up. Seems like it might be a Bloodforge in the next slot, or even potentially a Soul Eater, if he so chooses. If it's a Soul Eater, going to be a long, long time, because that's another stacking item, so more likely Bloodforge. Sacrificing a little bit of penetration for just extra power and survivability could go a long way.
You got to get this one if you're going to put the Dharmic Pillars on it, and the Scorpions do, though Johnny was close by. I say the targets abound for Johnny, but it's all been Picorino and then French Emperor once. 3 deaths on this Tiamat. Could be a 4th if Picorino's not careful. French Emperor up and over the wall. Doesn't this give you a good indication of the way that this game is going? If the Aaru Scorpions, 13 minutes into the game, are forced to run away from their own speed buff, we're going beneath our tier 2 towers because of where Hex Mambo are positioning. And anywhere Johnny is somewhere you need to be worried about if you're the Scorpions. Right now, it's the Gold Fury. Hex Mambo have rotated towards the left side of the map. Calvin does not have Dharmic Pillars. There's a Supernova for Davey. Pluck onto Calvin. Shell awaits on the other side. Looks like enough damage was there from Davey to force Hex Mambo to drop the Fury.
Yeah, Echrome going to reset himself here, but has global presence if he needs it to get back towards this fight. The Scorpions, though, still don't have their ultimate back up on Calvin, so will not stick around. Instead, try and secure themselves a red buff, but Trixtank seems to have something to say about it.
Tail whip, good to disrupt Picarino. Though there is a jump out on the other side. French Emperor.
He's dead.
He's going to sacrifice here. Yeah, you got a 5-man knockup in silence. That looks cool. But you're going to have to hope it looks cool in black and white as down goes French Emperor. Echrome low here as well. Dazzling offensive into the Aegis, and Picarino now adds the first kill of the game after dying 3 times to Johnny. 1-for-1 trade is about as good as it'll get for the Scorpions right now.
Yeah, Mambo should have known better. They got to disengage if Johnny's not going to take the fight. He's the only one getting kills right now for the Chaos team. 5 on his belt and 5 to the entirety of the team so far. That said, 1-for-1 trade, going to favor the team that's behind every single time. The Scorpions are able to trade out French Emperor for Echrome and stop that Gold Fury from falling down. Surprised that Mambo don't just go back towards it, though. Yet again, they had won out on that engagement in that Aaru Scorpions were forced back to base for the most part and had already used the majority of their team fight ultimates. But even in that, Mambo not willing to take a risky play. The Oracles, though, will at least mitigate the opportunity for Scorpions of going for a return Gold Fury in their own right. Nothing they can do on that left side of the map without Mambo knowing about it.
The Scorpions do take away the purple buff, at least. So still finding small opportunities to pull back a little bit of gold. All the Aaru Scorpions right now. No, that team fight went in your favor. It is with the asterisk that Johnny simply was not participating. We do get an answer. Bloodforge is the item pickup for Johnny here. So that's like that's like a team fight snowbally item. And you know, if Johnny can find that opening kill myth, you can just sort of keep going down the stretch. Of course, lifesteal is nice, but keeping yourself in the fights longer once you pick up the kills feels really, really good. Calvin has Dharmic Pillars, drops it around the Gold Fury.
He's just helping.
But reset enough, and the Hex Mambo will grab the Gold Fury. Not without a little bit of pressure, though, from Calvin.
Yeah, I thought for maybe a moment Calvin had stolen that with his first ability. Yep. Zeros waits a very long time to shoot out that ultimate.
That's
Seems
play
like
test Dave level of Ganesh play.
Yeah, that's high. For those of you uninitiated in the chat, Dave not allowed to play his Ganesh and play test for hi-rez because it's so good. Don't put the camera on me. It's so good.
Either that's the reason, or they're like, Dave, you need to learn to play something else.
Why would they care? You know, why would they care if you learn something else?
Yeah, that's true. All I do is ruin the sanctity of play tests if I don't play Ganesh, though, is the problem. It's worthless for everyone else's time. Dash away from Trixtank as I dash away from this line of questioning. Zeros plugs some damage in towards the front line. Zeros immediately goes into double flat pen again, this time Divine Ruin, Spear of Dessa, similar to last time. And it was Charon's coin, if I remember correctly, for Zeros after these 2 items, and still has that opportunity here. And then, of course, Book of Thoth was after that, and we all knew it was going to be that.
Soul Reaver.
Oh, God, you're right. I just wanted to say Thoth. You're right, it was Soul Reaver. I'm very wrong. I'm just completely wrong.
Hey,
and it is Charon's coin for 0, so I am right about one thing. And it looks like Picarino, similar mindset here as well, though, is going to move away from the Chronos pendant that took the place of that Spear of Desolation last time. Still get a little CDR, but more flat pen. And then into the Tier 2 Ob Shard, a good item, good stat stick already for the Aaru Scorpions mid laner.
Yeah, curious to see that Picarino actually a level up on Zeros as well. Zeros haven't not fallen so far this game, and Picarino haven't fallen thrice. You'd think Zeros would just have more time on the map to farm up, but somehow Picarino able to just control the majority of that farm. Maybe it's the ability of Tiamat to fight a little bit earlier on than Thoth.
Whoa,
Davey.
Good Dharmic Pillars, good Supernova. Where's the Echrome go, though? Calvin waiting on the other side. And Echrome not far enough to get onto the wall. But we'll keep this fight going. Johnny
nope,
just clears out the ward. An ugly one won't make it to the left side of the map. And so you thought you had an opportunity on a Echrome there, but it's anything but. Anywhere Johnny is, any side of the map that this set is on with how mobile this pick is, seems to be a threatening spot for the Scorpions. Though, Myth, I do think, although out of the farm and the neutral farm and some buffs have been stolen away by Hex Mambo, the Scorpions have done a decent job of slowing this game down and preventing big fights from breaking out. Are going to lose the Pyromancer. The Hex Mambo All their golden experience is coming from the map right now.
Yeah, and this is what Mambo have done differently from Scorpions with their lead. If we were to look at the golden experience charts now, you'd see that it has been a steady incline the entire time. Maybe some slight dips here and there, but constantly putting pressure on the map, constantly forcing the Scorpions to answer a difficult question, and in doing so have extended their lead further than anything we saw from the Scorpions in Game 1. 18, 19 minutes in, approaching 20, is an opportunity now for Hex Mambo to group up and do the final step, that final nail in the coffin that we didn't quite see from the Scorpions, the Fire Giant. And we talked about it last game, how strong Thoth can be with a Fire Giant in those siege situations. Still true here. I think the Scorpions would be well served by showing up to defend on that objective, which is exactly what the Mambo want as well. They would love to take a fight in neutral territory. It's essentially a situation of, can the Scorpions fight against the odds here, or are they going to wait later where the odds are even worse?
Yeah, Hex Mambo have good shred, but also big burst damage secure with that final judgment. Those Supernova and Dharmic Pillars can keep things interesting for the Scorpions as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you let a Fire Giant go quietly, as on and off the wall goes Ikram.
Oh, nice.
I think if a Fire Giant just goes for free over to Hex Mambo, you're looking at real low odds to come back in a game like this with how far ahead Hex Mambo are anyway. Johnny looks towards Calvin as Echrome dashes back down from the sky. Silence is up, and look at the damage that this Chernobog is outputting. Ugly One into the dazzling offensive. Will connect with a stun onto Echrome, who beezes and dashes away. French Emperor also trying to get in on the action.
Good damage.
Final Judgment flies on through. That's nice from Zeros. And can the Blood Forge make some waves here in this fight? Will Johnny head back in onto the engagement, sees Calvin, sees some low health targets. Supernova does a little bit of damage. French Emperor looking towards Zeros on the back line of this fight. The carries of Hex Mambo have been left alone, while Johnny and Trickstank have themselves been left alone with the other members of the Aaru Scorpions. It looks like both teams will somehow fully separate.
Yeah, good damage output on a Johnny will save the lives of the Scorpions in their own back line. That said, surprise Ugly One able to walk out with that much HP still as French Emperor on the chase here. These are low odds. Not a whole lot of opportunity to kill Johnny.
Well, Johnny Aegis out the ultimate. I still think Johnny could have the ability to turn that fight around, but with enough damage and pressure there from French Emperor, Johnny won't take that chance. Primal Fury spawns. Ugly One is close by. Picorino up and over the wall as well. Johnny's sustaining up just a little bit here. This is a 4-level deficit. And Johnny's still not feeling comfortable with it.
He's got to defend the speed.
Surely, right? Yeah, I mean, now we're going to start fighting. This is why I was surprised he was running the whole time. It's a 4-level. Maybe he was baiting him into the speed buff.
Yeah, you won't walk into my speed
buff. But you know what? Johnny didn't get his speed buff.
That's a solid win for French Emperor, by the way. Like a moral win, a farm win, especially considering I think French Emperor, I agree with you, probably shouldn't have been chasing for the most part there.
I just couldn't believe Johnny kept running. I understand through the ultimate, through like the axe toss, that first volley of abilities.
Oh, he's going to get speed.
For sure. Okay, get speed anyway. Good. It's the long con for Johnny. Then the continued run, that was very surprising. Hex Mambo strong enough on the left, though, that they'll take this Primal Fury quietly. Johnny
6 kills for Johnny.
6-0, putting on a masterclass here in game number 2, giving Hex Mambo a real good look at ending this set in game number 2. The Aaru Scorpions, Miff, I still think in a very similar territory. That one kill doesn't change all that much. You might have to put up a fight around this Fire Giant.
I wonder what Johnny's thinking to himself in this situation, right? Like, he's got to be thinking, oh, man, nothing's going to happen unless it's me making it happen, right? Because so far, that's exactly been the case for Hex Mambo. That said, 22 minutes in, no Gold Fury, no Tier 1 tower on left. Pyromancer hasn't respawned, only one feasible neutral objective. Gotta think it's going to come down to the Fire Giant very shortly. And you've got a pretty significant gold lead still. 22 minutes in, 7K. Pretty nice at this point. Already finishing up those 5th items for the majority of Hex Mambo, starting to move in towards 6 very shortly, whereas Aaru Scorpions have not quite completed their 5th Tier 3 items. Maybe 1 or 2 of them able to pick up theirs. Ugly One, Spirit Robe on this back, and be a good deal of survivability considering how much CC is on the side of Hex Mambo. Every time he takes any of that CC, we'll get some additional mitigations going his way. I would like to see Hex Mambo just go ahead and group up, force another fight, this time around the fire.
Well, Miff, we did see a Tainted Steel start over in the Soul Lane for Deathwalker. I feel like I often see Tainted Breastplate as the upgrade.
Generally.
Tainted Amulet ends up being the option here. And so you sort of just another anti-heal item when you consider how the amulet works. Deathwalker will be able to apply some of that anti-heal here in this fight. The chase begins over on right. Deathwalker reinitiates. Two-man knockup as Picarino dashes away. Will walk right on through the Dharmic Pillars. And what a time to rage out for Deathwalker. Dives beneath the tier 2 tower. Trix Tank lurking down beneath the waters. Looks for a pluck on the other side, but won't end up finding it. Zero sends out some damage. And Trix Tank was low. Scorpions, though, run for the hills, and they'll stay alive, but their tier 2 tower will not.
Yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about Tainted Amulet because I'm not sure we're going to get many more opportunities to talk about it in competitive Smite. You reduce whoever hits you, their healing by 30%, and instead of just reducing it by 30%, it should just be steal it because you get 100% of that 30% reduction. So, who on the side of the Aaru Scorpions is going to give over value to Deathwalker here? By the way, Pyromancer falls down, Hex Mambo take that one for themselves. It's really just French Emperor, right? Like, Davey got some self-sustain, Ugly One got a little bit, but generally the only one that's really going to change the survivability of Deathwalker is this going to be consistent heals from Chalk. I suppose when you add them all up, there is potential that it can go your way. But the healing that Soul is afforded, not very high, and you're only getting 30% of it regardless. The healing that Ugly One's going to be using, not very high. It's not as if you're heavily affecting like a Hell or an Aphrodite or something along those lines where you get a whole ton of value. But it is just a strong stat stick in its own right. 30 physical power, good deal of protections, 80 magical, 30 physical.
Yeah, magical prots feel good.
Yeah, it's going to be a good deal of survivability. Just maybe not the best passive in that tree.
We'll see. Deathwalker can make use of it. Zeros chunks down some damage on Ugly One here. It is Soul Reaver, yet again. Not Book of Thoth. 4 zeros. Ugly One's just had a difficult game here. It is at 101. The Amaterasu has been under constant pressure from the rest of Hex Mambo. So is Picarino here, dashing away from the frontline initiation. French Emperor chunks down damage onto Zero. Zero's used the Aegis. That's a solo kill for French Emperor, but now can he get out? Axe thrown over the wall, teleports to it. Deathwalker awaiting on the other side, but this is a good start to a fight for the Aaru Scorpions as Zeros is gone for 45 seconds.
And this is why I was so curious about Hex Mambo's lackadaisical approach to this Fire Giant. Now, the Aaru Scorpions have all the advantage going into this objective. That said, they'd only remove Zeros, and the real threat still lurks.
Yeah, Johnny over towards the left. Deathwalker finds a knockup on a Davey. Calvin chunked down. Johnny gets the Blood Forge shield and needed every bit of it, but French Emperor is there on the back. As now E-Chrome is going to have to be the damage dealer here alongside Deathwalker. Picarino shoved against the wall by the Coquelin, still raging out, can de-transform in a moment. But how about this fight from the French Emperor? A 3-kill swing, was 0-3 just a few moments ago. Now 3-0, might add a 4th in this engagement. The fact that that ultimate has come back up as E-Chrome on and off the wall, a triple kill, a delayed quad for French Emperor, and the Aaru Scorpions are right back.
Just really curious pacing from Mambo. Once Zeros falls down, you'd expect Mambo to be willing to give up a little bit of positioning, at least wait for the Fire Giant to deal a little bit more damage before they re-engage, but Mambo say, hey, you're not even allowed to pull that objective. Walk in while it's still 80%, lose out on the majority of the team fight immediately afterward. The Aaru Scorpions bide their time similarly to what we saw from Hex Mambo in Game 1 and are able to strike back. That said, Hex Mambo had established a much larger gold lead going into this point, so that fumble does not affect them nearly as much. Still nursing, was that nearly 8,000 in the lead? Experience still largely in their favor.
Maybe more of an annoyance than a game changer.
Yeah, more of a delay, right? Really just, we're at the exact same map state. Now that Hex Mambo has respawned, 4 members that is, and once E-Chrome's back, we'll likely have that ultimate available. Can join the fight very shortly.
Wow, the Scorpion's gonna now try to push this advantage. E-Chrome is back. See if this Turnabout channels the ultimate. Looks like just walking back from base right now. Deathwalker on the back line is knocked up. Both backliners. Davey forced into the disapparate. Look at the tiny bit of damage that Deathwalker has been taking here. First bit of shielding comes through. Roar gets let out as Dharmic Pillar separates out this fight, but the 3-man dive is in, and Picarino taken down by Trix Tank. Now French Emperor will try to repeat the same performance. 4 kills in the last fight. Hasn't found anyone just yet, but Deathwalker and Johnny both low.
Yeah, they should be able to head back to base pretty easily here. Gonna have to walk back and no teleport available. Good pluck. Will shut down Ugly One, and the 3-man core of the Aaru Scorpions will limp their way back to base. 2-for-0 trade for Hex Mambo, and the Fire Giant looking mighty appetizing from here. No defense from the Scorpions. This one's gonna go over to 5 members of Mambo.
It's still a mid lane tier 2 and a left side tier 2 tower that Hex Mambo can siege up after the fact. Also Primal Fury over on the left side of the map. 35 seconds though without Ugly One. Can you force the issue fast enough to maybe make quick work of a Phoenix over on right?
Absolutely. I mean, they've already got the minion wave pushed up as well. I meant that you got to reset. You just won a team fight. Golden Pocket makes not for a lead, David. Instead, got to go back to base, spend up that gold.
He's my full name.
You know, look, I didn't, not all of it, the full first name.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so yeah, they spend up that gold. Look at that, uncommon staff for zeros. That's good.
That's not common.
Yeah, not at all. Despite being a tier 1 item, maybe a misnomer on the uncommon staff. Lots of wards in pocket, so it's going to be a little bit easier to siege. Got plenty of time to play with this Fire Giant. Could have thought maybe we'd be looking at a right side Phoenix Siege just because it still would have been like 20 seconds left on Ugly One's respawn by the time that the Hex Mambo, or just Hex Mambo, had grouped up.
Yeah, but like, what do we know?
On the Phoenix. Yeah, what do we know?
We don't know much.
Not at all.
We don't know much. Tier 2 on right, or on left rather. Instead is going to be the target here for Hex Mambo. Still waiting on that Frenzy for Trix Tank to get back in the next 20 seconds or so. That'll be what you got to look out for at the last couple of moments, what could be the last couple of moments of this game. Once Trix Tank hits that button, that's when Hex Mambo will surge themselves forward, or maybe it's a pluck onto Davey.
Look at Zeros.
In the back line, Zeros being dove by Ugly One. E-Chrome, though, there to supply a little bit of damage as well. French Emperor, you do a lot of damage, but you take a lot of damage as well. Zero shotgun blast to the jaw of French Emperor. Turns this fight around. Now Johnny in on the chase as Davey yet again plucked in this fight. Zeros grabs a double kill, and Johnny smells blood.
E-Chrome teleports back from base, should be able to connect some good damage. Triple kill for Zeros, and Hex Mambo have only got to remove 1 bird before they can move into the Titan room.
Will they move into the Titan room? They should. There's only 2 members left alive, and it's Ugly One and Calvin. Zeros on a triple kill. A delayed Penta may be around the corner unless all eyes are on the Titan. Gets you built it up. Then Johnny knocks it down. The Titan will also be knocked down, and Hex Mambo grabbed the 2-0.
So even E-Chrome not going to give him the delayed Quadra. The last kill, Ugly One, falls to the ADC of Hex Mambo. 15-6 to close that one out. And it was not particularly close in game 2.
No.
Maybe some small little stumbles. I wouldn't call them fumbles because it didn't amount to much. Some stumbles around some objectives. Doesn't really add up to anything.
When does a stumble become a fumble?
When it adds up to something.
Do you have to lose the game for a stumble to be a fumble?
You got to lose the objective at least.
Right, that moment needs to be lost. No, they didn't. You're right. They didn't lose the Fire Giant. They lost the moment, but didn't fumble the bag completely.
Stumbled
Hex Mambo, they stumbled with the bag. Hex Mambo are able to grab game number 2 here and grab the set, get themselves back on track in the EU SEC. This was the Johnny show from early on in this game until the end of the game. Zeros, of course, puts down a triple kill at the end. But Myth, this lead really blows up because anywhere Johnny went, kills fell.
Yeah, 100% kill participation and allocation for the first 6 or 7, I believe, in this game. It was only the 8th that went over to anybody else on Hex Mambo. And by the time that we had gotten to that point, Johnny really did start to fall off. Felt like he wasn't able to find that same level of impact in these team fights. The AoE damaged capabilities of the Scorpions draft was enough to limit this set. But the set had already done his job. He'd already put everybody so significantly ahead that it didn't need to be him in the team fight. Zero steps up in a big way. We see a great space control from Deathwalker, Trix Tank finding impactful plucks consistently before these team fights started up, and it leads to a very convincing win for the veterans.
Yeah, 13 affected kills by Johnny, 8 of them in his back pocket. Only missing out on a couple of kills worth of participation here from Johnny. That's what I talk about, like vintage Johnny, like that hyper carry style of jungler that we saw so much in the SEC a couple years ago, and then moments of in the SPL last year. Hex Mambo will be better off for it if Johnny can return to that style of play. Though this is a 2-0 against the Aaru Scorpions, I still think there are some moments that the Scorpions can build off of moving forward here this year in the SEC. I think you look back to game 1, you controlled the early and the mid game. and then maybe we don't let Johnny get quite as fed in game number 2, and things look a little bit different here. Aaru Scorpions, unfortunate 2-0 loss here to Hex Mambo, finalizes our week in the EU SEC. We had some competitive sets, though, to start off this week. Gilded Gladiators, a 2-1 over the Styx Ferrymen. Might be my favorite name, by the way, Styx Ferrymen.
Really?
Because
you could put a V on it, right? That makes it a little bit easier for you.
What?
That's like the Ferryman.
Oh, right, the V. I thought you said a V, like the letter V. I don't know where a V fits in there. But a little bit of parity here in the EU SEC. Wargs and Gladiators, both 2-0. Ravens and Mambo tied up at 1-1. And then Styx Ferryman, cool name and all, down at 0-2 alongside the Aaru Scorpions. So it's separated out a little bit. Over in NA, there's a team that's a 2-0, and there's a team that's 0-2 down at the bottom. Myth, this was all a primer for us here today. We've got some great SPL matches coming up a little bit later on today.
Excited.
That'll start up in just a little bit of time. But first, we have the SPL waiting room. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to stick around. SPL waiting room coming up next.